Hi and welcome to 1980 something, hopefully a new YouTube channel where we'll be reviewing upcoming LEGO sets. My name's Cade.
And I'm Brent.
And today we'll be reviewing the Ghostbusters set, the latest release for LEGO Ideas, formerly known as LEGO Cuso. Brent?
Before we even start, I'm going to be a bit biased for this review because I'm the guy who created the 30th anniversary project on LEGO Cuso at the time, now called LEGO Ideas. So I'm already coming in with a preconceived opinion of the set, but we'll get down to it and start talking about it. So it's number 21108. And it's also, this is the first one that's been labelled with the LEGO Ideas, so it's 006 set. This is obviously the box for it.
It was actually interesting. I was wondering if they're actually going to start the numbers again with the Ideas branding. But they've continued.
I'll be curious to know what happens with if they do reproductions of the Minecraft or the Back to the Future set, whether they actually relabel it or not. So that'll be interesting to find out.
Point.
But here's the full box set. You can see it's got that nice green and blue, which some of you might recall I used in my photography for my original Cuso submission.
I actually commented on that when I saw this for the first time. I'm like, hey, there's kind of the same look as you had in your
so it's a little bit flattering that they copied that. I actually, when I did my original one, I had some dry ice. And I had a flashlight with a green cup over the end to get the green light at the end. So that's how I achieved it. But moving on. That's the back of the box. You can see it's got a logo for the 30th anniversary. So the Ghostbusters is actually celebrating its 30th anniversary in June, I think 6th or 8th. Somewhere in early June. They're celebrating its release. So when I pitched the project, I pitched it as a 30th anniversary project.
Which is pretty cool.
To take advantage of that and to sort of commemorate the event.
And make us all feel old.
Yeah, especially myself. So before we have a look at the manual, I just want to say Cade's actually partially responsible for getting this set made. We used to work together at the same company, and I was making Ecto 1 and the Ghostbusters for my own project for my local LUG, or LEGO Users Group, which is called Bruce Bricks. I was going to display it at an expo, and I put it all together, and Cade suggested I put it on Cuso because I had some other projects on there at the time which were doing reasonably well. He suggested I chuck it on.
Why not?
I didn't really consider it myself until he said it, and I did, so he's partially responsible for all this.
You guys can send through the fan mail later. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
So we'll have a quick look at the manual.
The cool thing about this manual actually is it follows the kind of same direction as like the architecture set, so it's kind of like the high quality format, which is pretty cool.
I quite like that, including on the box, the kind of chevron yellow and black lines, which is very Ghostbusters.
Safety first.
Yeah, it's got a little brief about Ghostbusters in case you don't even know what Ghostbusters is. There could be a lot of people these days. And there was actually some interesting information in there about the Ecto 1, which I've never heard before, which some of the things they were going to do with the vehicle before the script was kind of rewritten several times. I won't spoil them for you, I'll let you read it for yourself, but it was very eye-opening for me as a Ghostbusters fan to read that stuff and think about what may have been, but I think what they ended up with was probably for the better, reading what I did.
One cool thing I thought while going through these instructions that was definitely different and new for an instruction set was there were little quotes from the film with the Lego minifig in the bottom corner throughout, which were, again, I won't read to spoil it because it would be nice for fans, but it was kind of humorous and
it's not every page, but every second or third page there's a little quote in the corner. It just keeps while you're building. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool.
That's kind of. I thought that was a nice touch. Also, like all the Cuso sets at the back, there's a brief section on Brent. He's not in all Cuso sets, just for the record, but he is in this one because he obviously designed the original model that inspired this set, I guess.
Michael Spesser was the actual designer of the set, and Adrian was the designer of the minifigs.
He did all the graphic design for all of the torsos and on the minifigs.
So there's a page spread about their sort of experiences with Ghostbusters and working on the project and stuff.
Cool. So I think that's about it for the instructions.
We may as well have a look at the model, shall we?
bring it on out. Who you gonna call?
So we have the Ghostbusters and the Ecto-1, or the Ectomobile. One thing I liked about it, which is good for probably, I would imagine, most of the purchasers of this, or a fair percentage of them, is it's got a very displayable value in that it comes with this little minifig display, which we haven't really seen before. But for myself, I bought the Back to the Future one, and it sits in a cupboard in a shelf in a glass cabinet with the minifigs there. So for people like myself, it's a really good way to display them with the theme, and it's got the little ghost to get a fourth Ghostbuster logo.
Yeah, which is a nice
slope there, which is a nice addition. And all of the pieces in the set too are printed, not stickers. Yeah. So there's no concern about that.
Which is a nice bonus.
Yep.
And thankfully they're all printed with the correct wording.
Yeah.
Unlike the little mishap with the Back to the Future set.
Yep. So we might as well have a look at the Ecto one itself now, and I'll just bring in case we want to compare. We've got a larger model here, so we can compare the proportions, which I think they're done really closely to the actual the actual Ecto one.
Yeah.
We've got that really long bonnet and a really long body as well as being really wide. And if you just want to grab the Back to the Future car, you can see the comparison in scale.
This is the Back to the Future car. I think like we were talking about this before, one of the things is with these sets, they are probably slightly bigger than the average town car, but they're not so large that they're out of place in a modular scene, like with the modular buildings.
Yeah, I think that one, the Ecto one, would look really good with the Lego Fire Brigade if you had that set. Yeah. It's probably about as wide as that one, I think, from memory.
Yeah.
From the vehicle that comes with the Fire Brigade.
And I like it because it gives you that opportunity to get that extra details in that you want in something that's like it's not like it's a play set or a range of sets. It's like a display piece. Yeah.
I've always considered the LEGO Ideas or Kuso range to be more of a prestige product, more like the architectural sets.
That's right.
They're not so much for niche markets. That's probably the wrong word to use, but it's a very collector's kind of.
That's market. Right. And I think that comes across in the quality of the box and obviously also the design and the details that they've included. So
before we get into in depth about the Ecto one itself, we'll start talking about the minifigs. We have Winston Zeddemore, Peter Venkman, Egon Spengler, and Ray Stantz. And as you know, Harold Ramis died recently, earlier in the year. It's probably one of the bigger influences of my life in Ghostbusters and all the movies he's worked on, especially Groundhog Day, which is a favourite of mine. It's very nice to have. I feel like I'm giving him back somewhere by having him, having a hand in having him recreated in Lego form. It's a small, absolutely. It feels like a small thing I'm giving back to him.
Actually, it's funny you mentioned that because I noticed that he was the guy on the back of the box saying who you're going to call, which I thought was... I don't know if that was intentional that he was the guy there or not, but I thought that was really cool that he was included.
I hope it is because he's not, in the story of the movie, he's not the most outgoing of them all. So I feel like if they've done that, they've done it on purpose to sort of highlight
which was kind of
his
nice.
Influence.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, we've got unique prints for each of the characters on their faces, as well as their torsos, and on the back of their heads, you've also got a scared version of their faces.
I was pretty impressed by the design of the proton packs. I actually was surprised at the amount of detail that's included in them. They've got some unique pieces actually in terms of colours. We've got the dark red 1x1 round plate with a hole in the top, and also the black whip, which isn't the Indiana Jones spirally one, it's the other one.
Catwoman one, I guess, is it?
Yeah. So that's the first time they've been in those colours. It also has the printed tile, which I won't even begin to try and describe
what it is.
Yeah, but it's kind of a cool detail actually, and it all kind of clips together quite nicely.
Yeah, the only use I could think of it outside of Ghostbusters is like a spider face or something because it's got those little red eyes. Yeah. But I'm sure people could find use for greebling and things or more Ghostbuster related stuff.
Yeah.
And now we'll move on to the actual Ecto one itself, which I found, based comparing it to my original Kuso project, it actually retained all the details I had in there and added some to it. So my original one didn't have an interior at all. I just couldn't find a way to manage it given the shape of the car, and they've managed to fit an interior that can fit 3 of the characters in there and some of the backpacks, the proton packs in there as well.
I think one of my favourite features was the side windows, which was very similar to the design you had on your original model. But they've done a really good job of actually making it really structurally sound. And when you actually clip those pieces in, when you're doing the build, they just sit there on the angle instantly, and you're like, well, that's really, really quite a clever.
And compared to mine was a little bit flimsy, and you had to position it in the right angle, and if you bumped it, it'd get knocked in. Whereas this, it just goes in the right angle at the first go.
Yeah.
It's solid, it's strong, it doesn't fall apart. And overall, it's really solid. Like compared to mine, it doesn't fall apart. Like there's parts of mine that if I did that to it, the whole thing would just fall to pieces. So it's actually really good and strong.
Yeah, they've used a lot of the bracket pieces in this to kind of create the front and sides, and yeah, it's a very, very sturdy build. I was really impressed actually, putting it together.
Yeah, it's surprising considering all those little details on top, how strong it is fitting together. And they've added the extra few details like the aerial and the little windscreen wipers and a little grill on the front there. Yeah,
I think that was actually one of my favourite bits was the windscreen wipers on the front, using the little levers like you said. They move up and down, which was pretty cool.
And I guess we'll have a look at the inside now. One thing I quite liked was we've got the pipes coming up the side here, which are part of the original sort of Ecto 1 design, but rather than attaching those and having them get in the way when you put it back on, take the roof on and off, you can just sort of pull them out and lift the whole roof off and get full access to the interior.
Definitely adds to the playability of the set.
If you're so inclined.
That's right. As we were discussing before, I don't play with my Lego.
Yeah, I build things and display them and take photos of them.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's kids out there or even older people who love to just get down and drive this thing around the swooshability factor of driving it around. So being able to fit your minifigs in there and have some play factor with it is good.
And this is like the fact that the roof is off right now, and these side panels are like the windows down the sides. They're fully structurally sound. That's not. Yeah. It's pretty cool design. Actually, I really like that. Also, like obviously, the difference between making your own mock and having to create instructions to show someone else how to build it. Like this is really, it was a pretty straightforward build.
And that's the biggest thing I think is when I create something for Kuso or my own projects, I'm really only interested in visually what it looks like.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm aiming to hit a visual mark of what I want it to look like. I'm not really that as interested in playability and strength and stuff, because I'm going to build it and put it in a display cabinet or take photos of it and then disassemble it after that. It's done. So it's a high praise to be able to retain so much of the original form.
I agree.
While still having it infinitely stronger than my own.
So as for elements that I'm not quite sure about, the things that stood out to me were these front portions of the Cadillac. They're kind of the 2x3 with a round end, with the hole in the end, with the upside down round plate. Not quite sure.
I assume it's made to make it look like it's rounding off at the end.
Yeah, maybe.
And they couldn't. The piece I used, they just couldn't use because it needs a certain amount of thickness here to be able to fit on. So I assume they've just replaced it for that.
I mean, to be fair, I mean I'm probably going to use this front end when I wouldn't edit it for mine. But
it would take me a while, I think, to come up with a better solution that is as strong.
It's a trick. I mean, there's so many curves in the original vehicle. It's a tricky one to solve. Another point. Thing that kind of stood out as a little odd was why this part here is actually brown rather than red. It's clearly red in the original vehicle. The only thing I could think of maybe is it's a constraint on, like, they just didn't have that part in red and it was one piece on a whole set. It couldn't justify making it in that color. One structural element which I thought was quite clever, and I was wondering why they did it as I was assembling it, was the inclusion of these inverted round tile pieces on the bottom. They don't actually touch the ground, and I was like, why are they there? But they're actually there to hold all of these pieces together, which I actually thought was a really cool element, and it's something that I'll probably use in future creations.
Really thought of it. I've often had situations like that where I want to try and connect something and have it stronger, while keeping a small sort of footprint and size.
That's right.
but I haven't really thought of using those things. So next time I come to build something, I'll probably steal that idea.
It's actually pretty cool, and you keep the clearance, and yeah, very cool. And also how the body of the car sits over the back wheel is obviously another key feature of the car.
One of my favourite bits is something I struggled with and gave up on in my original Kuso model, or LEGO Ideas as it's called now, is the white rim tyres with the silver hubcaps. I couldn't figure out a way to do it myself, and they've managed to use the dumbbell weights in a unique way to able to get you the white rim rubber on the inside, as well as having the silver hubcap on the inside.
It's a nice detail.
Yep. So I think overall it's really difficult for me to be unbiased because of my connection to the project, but I really enjoyed the build and I think it's a great set. You don't often get this many minifigs in a set of this price, especially sort of such iconic characters like this. There's some really cool building techniques putting it together, some exclusive pieces.
Yeah, for me, I think it's a really fun build, iconic set, obviously. I love the detail, I love the scale, and I love the minifigs. So I think overall, great set. Can't wait to get it. Jealous Brent has us already.
Yeah, for everyone else, it'll be coming out in June. It's got 508 pieces. It's Lego Set 21108. It'll be $49.99 in the US, $59.99 in Canada, $69.99 in Australia, and $39.99 I think in the UK. Don't quote me on that.
Don't quote him on that.
Don't quote me on that. So thanks for watching 1980 something. If you like what you've seen, let us know. Subscribe, give some comments.
Yeah, if you've got any feedback,
yep,
post them in the comments.
If you like what you've seen, we'll do more. If not, we'll just go back to our little corner and hide.
We'll make more Kuso sets.
Yeah, one of the two.
LEGO Ideas.